Okay, we are recording.
Okay, great.
So I am Allie Brown. I am the owner of Agent List LLC, and we are doing these interviews on behalf of buyers and sellers who may be looking for an agent in certain areas. Tiffany Graham here. She's my chosen agent for Fort Moore, Georgia. And it's also on behalf of all other real estate agents who would be looking to refer to that area as well. So we are just going to ask some questions that maybe you would want to know to validate credibility, reputation, those sorts of things that you don't really get to see on reviews or, social media sites. So, Tiffany, if you want to introduce yourself, I already said where you're from and, what your
Yeah.
name is, but you can introduce yourself real quick.
So I'm Tiffany Graham. I live here in the Columbus, Georgia area. My father was actually stationed back here when it was called Fort Benning in 1991. I finished up high school here, so very familiar with the area. I did leave for college and actually missed it. So I ended up coming back home. My parents both retired from out at Fort Moore now, and they live here. So you know, all are in the same area. We're a very close-knit family. And I met my husband. We've been married for 21 years, and we have an 18-year-old son leaving for college in the fall. But been practicing real estate for 20 years, and
Wow,
it's really my passion to help people,
that's awesome.
especially military members. I just have a strong passion for what
Mhm.
they do and what their families do for our country.
Yeah. Do you find that a lot of your clients are military members? Do you have like a good balance?
I do. Most of my clients are military. I would say about 80% are military, and that's just really where my passion is. So,
Yeah. So it
mm,
seems like you said that your mom and your dad are retired from the military.
yes, they held civil service positions
Okay.
overseas where we grew up, and then here at Fort Moore.
Okay. Do you think that having a good understanding of how the military works helps you to better work with military clients?
It does. It gives me the sense of where they're coming from, what their concerns are, especially for their families and children. They want to make sure that they're in good schools. I think a lot of people that don't come from the military background don't understand how hard it is for children to switch schools and, be comfortable in all these new places that they're moving to
Yeah.
every 3 to 5 years. And just with the sense of the move itself, I mean, it had a lot of compassion for it. So,
Right.
mhm.
Yeah. Do you have advice for people who have like school age children? Like, do you like, I know we're not supposed to steer in the
Yeah.
real estate industry, but like, do you find that you can help them like better place their kids in schools?
Yeah, we talk about what their needs are. Like my son had, some pretty strong learning disabilities growing up. And so finding the right schools and everything was important for us,
Mhm.
and understanding, those needs. I talked to families about their children, and they may be more gifted, they may have certain needs, so what school districts do we need to be in? But we can always provide the information to them so that they can do their own research and feel comfortable. But it's having those resources that we can provide and help those families. So
That's
mhm.
awesome. Um, so you're from that area. Do you feel like living in an area gives you like a benefit over somebody who might have moved to the area and is just like learning it on the go, like knowing good areas or being able to help just because I know we can like look up facts, but
I think, yeah, definitely having a resource that knows the area inside and out is always a benefit for a new family moving here.
Mhm.
But I have really seen and been impressed with agents that are military wives and spouses
Mhm.
coming to the area and learning these areas and really doing a good job for their clients.
Mhm.
So it's not to say that, someone that's from here can do the best job, but I think just someone that has a passion for making sure that we find the right home and right placement for each family.
Right.
So,
That's
mhm,
awesome.
yeah.
Okay. Um, so I wanted to talk numbers a little bit. I know that numbers aren't everything, but I personally think they're something. So, do you know what your numbers are for like how many listings you've done or how many buyers you've worked with over like the last 12 months?
Yeah, so last year I closed out at about 135 transactions, which is a significant amount for an agent.
Hmm.
And this year I've already got 35 transactions on the books.
Awesome.
And it's just February 20th.
Hmm.
Just really hitting the ground running. But I'm very well organized. I have my twin sister, my identical twin sister that works with me. And between the two of us, we keep the files straight. We make sure inspections are going smoothly, and just the whole transaction in general with the lenders and the attorneys
Yeah.
are moving along.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Do you think that having a bunch of transactions under your belt matters for experience or building like credibility, or do you think that just a new agent could do the same job?
I always want to encourage new agents, and I do mentor new agents, but not having the experience of 20 years under their belt, it's kind of hard to, figure out each situation. They just don't know yet.
Yeah.
But I do encourage new agents.
Mhm.
But yes, I feel like having the experience matters.
Yeah,
So,
I would agree.
mhm.
And I was actually talking with another agent who was saying like one of the agents here at Fort Drum, he does a lot of he's at, same high numbers as you. And he was like, well, that doesn't mean he's necessarily the best. And I was like, but it kind of does because he's able to like what you said, like he's able to manage the
Mhm.
amount of transactions and not let anything fall through the cracks, which really just speaks highly of your ability to manage, the
Right.
whole transaction. And so if
Yeah.
you're not able to be able like, I don't think everybody could handle 135 transactions a year because
No.
they know how to balance it.
Right, right. And it's project management for each house because every single house and situation is different.
Mhm.
But it's remaining calm and thinking through every situation, for the best outcome
Yeah.
and to make those suggestions to our clients.
Yeah.
So ultimately it's their decision, but we can give them the best advice. So
Right. I think so
mhm.
too. Um, so in the past, how often do you like to communicate with your clients?
I communicate as much as needed. So if it's 10 times a day, it's 10 times a day.
Yeah.
It's just, what is needed for each person. And, a lot of my buyers and sellers, they don't know how many transactions I'm dealing with. That's
Right.
not their job to know that.
Yeah.
They're important in their own right, and they should feel like they're the only client.
Hmm.
So that's how I treat each person. So that's just the way it is. But no, they don't need to know how many transactions I have on my plate. So,
Sure. That's
mhm,
that's awesome. I'm glad you said that. So I got my license last year and then I
mhm.
chose not to use it, but when I was thinking through of like who I wanted to be as a real estate agent, I kept thinking, I would love to be like a wedding planner where like the bride gets to just enjoy the purchase of the house. She doesn't know any of the behind the scenes stuff, but I'm just like hustling behind the scenes, like,
Yeah.
oh, I gotta get it all done.
Yeah. If I can manage it and take, any of that stress off their plate, I mean, they're just not going to know about it unless, they need to be involved in making
Right.
decisions.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of management behind the scenes, and I want them just to enjoy the process. So,
Yeah. And I
mhm.
think that's as it should be too. Do you feel like you've learned from mistakes in the past through like
Sure.
communication stuff?
Yeah, I love this business, and even though I've been doing it for 20 years, the reason why I love it is because there's something new to learn each day.
Mhm.
If I figure out something and I know it inside and out, I get bored. So that's why I love this business. Learning is just makes me thrive.
Yeah.
I'm always taking new classes, and I'm taking a really extensive one right now. But it's just going to better me and
Mhm.
those people in those specific situations that I'm learning about. So No, I mean, you can always learn something from every situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Um, so you're a full-time agent, and we've already talked about how, you don't ever see this as a problem to meet the client's needs because you know how to manage all of your time really well and all the transactions. You have
Mhm.
a little bit of a team behind you, which is awesome.
Yes.
Um, so what advice would you give a buyer or a seller to help get like their offer accepted or to list their house for a price that would sell that they want?
Yeah. So sellers, I always tell them it's important to price your home right up front. So
Mhm.
we need to take a lot of time and look at, the past sales and where the state of the market is currently to come up with that price.
Sure.
It's important not to overprice in today's market with how much access people have to data. If they feel like or perceive that your home is overpriced, they're not going to come look these days.
Yeah.
A lot of people just don't have that kind of time. So they're going to go on to a house that they feel is more reasonably priced. They feel
Mhm.
like that seller is going to be more reasonable to work with.
Mhm.
Um, and so that is important. But it's also important for sellers to make sure that their home shows the best with, are repairs completed? Is the
Right.
home clean and ready and presentable? Is the yard looking good? And I
Mhm.
have teams for all of that. So
Awesome.
other agents know my listings because they know when they walk into them that they're not going to have to stress about, the home is not clean, the repairs are not done. They're going to know that they're getting a good home.
Right.
So I encourage the sellers to let me go through the process up front so that we can make the most money for them.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
then as far as buyers, I feel like it's really key to, of course, be pre-qualified up front, but it's not always just being pre-qualified. It's having those conversations and mentorship with their lender to
Mhm.
find out about the payment,
Sure.
because they might be pre-qualified for 250, 300,000.
Right.
But if they're not clear on what that payment is, if we're looking at homes that they're not comfortable with, when we make that offer, and they get their, payment information from their lender, they may want to terminate because it's not where they want to be each month on payments.
Sure.
So it's really having that mentorship up front and discussing, those important things. And then I can evaluate their needs, talk to them about what they're looking for, and
Right.
start doing research to find specific homes for them to go look at.
Yeah. That's great.
Mhm. Yeah.
So you just said earlier with the sellers that if their house is not perceived as being as valuable as they've listed it, how do you deal with that perception? Like, where do you find where somebody might perceive it being like overpriced or?
If buyers go online and they see the price of the house, but they see that another one in the subdivision, sold for a lot less, they'll know up front, if that home is too much.
Mm-hmm.
But I always tell sellers, hey, let's give it a shot. If you feel like, this is the price that you want to list it at, let's give it a shot. Let's see how the market responds, and we can always, adjust from there. So it is working together.
Yeah.
So. Mhm.
Awesome. Just looking at my list here. Okay. So a lot of the military clients will obviously get orders and then they'll be looking for a house before they even get there. So how have you had to work with buyers who've not been present? And then how do you anticipate their needs like before they move into town?
Sure. So since 2020, before that, we never really had sales where people were buying them sight unseen. But in 2020, we saw that across the nation have to happen. The military, they weren't getting the time that they usually received to be able to come and find a home and then go back to their old duty station before they come here. So really evaluating and finding out those needs over the phone, having a conversation about, what they're looking for. And I'm really particular for my clients. I want to make sure that they get here and they're going to love the home.
Mhm.
That's really, really important to me.
Yeah.
I don't want them to be disappointed when they see it. So I do a lot of FaceTime showings with them. We look at every nook and cranny. I tell them my honest opinion, and
Mhm.
then they can make a decision from there. And really, everybody's been happy that's had to do that. So,
Good.
mhm,
That's good.
yeah,
Yeah, I actually had to buy my house sight unseen, but my husband was here, so I
yeah,
was like putting the trust in his
trust
hands,
him.
and
Yeah.
now I'm like, not next time. I'm not doing that.
Yeah. Well, and it's really stressful for families having to do that because, they're taking someone that they don't know's word, that this is going to be good for their family.
Hmm.
So I take that to heart. I really want them to be happy with their choice. So,
Yeah.
mhm.
So since 2020, have you seen a lot more people still buying houses in that way, or has that kind of dwindled a little bit?
It's dwindled a little bit, but not much. We're still seeing it happen a lot.
Hmm.
I've recently had, I think, 4 families over the last month that have purchased homes that way.
Yeah,
So, mhm.
that's awesome. I feel like it's helpful because then
Yes.
real estate agents aren't, I feel like there's been talk of, like we don't need real estate agents anymore, but I think we do, and this is one of the big reasons.
We definitely do. We need somebody that, has experience looking at houses,
Yeah,
a family member or a friend that doesn't do this every day, doesn't always know what they're looking for,
right,
and definitely can't manage the transaction. So
right,
this is a lot easier. They can focus on their move and preparing their family while we focus on the house.
yep,
There's a lot of different things you have to do when you make a move, and um, worrying about the house shouldn't be one of them. So,
yeah.
yeah.
What would your advice be to somebody who's looking to purchase sight unseen or even move into that area, like when they should start looking for a house?
I usually tell people 2 months. So I want to interview them and understand what they're looking for. I set them up on what's called an auto search, and I'm a member of 4 different databases. Not all agents are members of 4. Usually they're only members of one.
Mm-hmm.
So I can really cast a wide net and set them up on multiple auto searches depending on what they're looking for.
Hmm.
But usually sellers want to close within 30 days. So 2 months is really the key. If we
Hmm.
can find a house within the first month and go under contract, then we've got 30 days to close and
Hmm.
have the house ready for them.
Right.
Mhm.
If
Yeah.
you have a client who lives in at a different duty station, but they got orders and they get in touch with you, is there a time frame that's too early to contact you, which you're like, just
No,
wait?
I don't feel like it's ever too early. I mean, I have some clients that I've been working with for over a year.
Mhm.
They've known that they're coming to Fort Moore, but they wanted to go ahead and find an agent, go
Uh,
ahead and get pre-qualified, and they may have to update some of their documents with their lender since it is a year out.
mhm.
But that way I can go ahead and start sending them home so they can get an idea of um, the homes and the price points and everything. So when we do get to that 2 months out, then
Right.
we can hit the ground running. So I never mind if somebody wants to have a conversation early, then let's do
Mm.
it by all means.
Yeah. Awesome.
Hmm.
Um, have you ever run into a situation, I was just curious about this,
Yeah.
where there wasn't a lot of houses on the market and you knew soldiers were coming into town or service members, where you were able to like give them more options or just help them
Well,
navigate that market?
yeah, so 2021 and 2022, we kind of had a shortage of homes, and we're starting to kind of see that again,
Hmm.
where there's not a lot of choices. And I tell people, don't feel rushed to make a decision just because of that. If it doesn't feel right to you, let's find some temporary housing. Let's see what's available on base, which we don't have, our unfortunately, Fort Moore doesn't have a whole lot of, extra housing, so they do have to find housing
Yes.
off base.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I just don't want people to make a rush decision. So,
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, after I have done my research on the amount of housing on most military bases, I think the statistic was like only a third can
Mhm.
provide housing, and then there's two-thirds who have to live off base. So, and usually on
Yeah.
post is very
It's
full,
limited.
full.
Yeah, and you wouldn't think that, with it being a military base, but it's true. And a lot of soldiers, I find they come here last minute and contact me, and they're like, I can't find, housing on base. I need a house.
Sure,
So we're kind of scrambling. But fortunately, there's Airbnbs, there's different things that they can stay in for temporary housing.
sure.
And that way we can find, what they're looking for. So. Mhm.
Awesome. Have you ever had to help a client navigate a bidding war?
Yes. Um, so, every house is different. And when we have the shortage of homes, we are starting to see bidding wars coming back.
Hmm.
And I work with a lot of military members, and they don't necessarily have the extra cash to do an escalation clause or, you know, offer a lot more for the house,
Right.
and guarantee that appraisal gap. So we have to get creative with that. And every situation is different, like I said, but we can do appraisal gaps. I recently did one for a soldier moving here that we're closing next month on, and we ended up doing like a $2,000 appraisal gap. He was able to afford that.
Nice.
But yeah, we have to take each situation and see what the best offer is. And I recommend buyers in that situation, put your best foot forward initially.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think that somebody's going to come back and counter your offer, because if they have five or six to choose from, they're going to choose the best out of that group.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
mhm,
that's good advice.
yeah.
Um, we talked a little bit about this, but what is your availability throughout the week doing like tours and virtual tours with people who are coming into the town?
Right. So I do work 7 days a week. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I am available when my clients need me.
Mm-hmm.
So between Tara and I, we can always help our clients. And so, one of us is available. Our families are also important to us. So we do have family time,
Yeah,
but we just fluctuate our calendars around that. And we understand that we're in a service industry. That's what's important. And we work when our clients need us. So,
right.
mhm,
That's awesome. Okay.
yeah.
Um, do you have like a number of properties that you would recommend to a client before they make an offer, or is like finding the first one and making an offer like a good choice?
So every situation is different. It depends on the family or the person looking for the house.
Hmm.
We try to do an interview and narrow that down for them. So we're, have, 5 to 10 houses to look at. But, if somebody wants to look at a lot more houses, that's up to them. I want them to walk into the house and know that's the right one for them.
Right.
That's what's most important to me. Um, and sometimes, we start looking at houses that, we, narrow down with during the interview process with the buyer or sell or buyer,
Mm.
and they determine that's not what they really want. So we go back to the drawing board and do some more research, and that's totally fine.
Right.
It's just being patient and working through the process with them.
Right.
Mhm.
Have you had any issues with people going to Zillow first and finding a property or a house, and then that property being off the market or being recently under contract, and then um, now you're kind of put in a weird situation?
Yeah, so a lot of buyers, they want to help us by going and looking at all of the different real estate websites available. And so they'll send us, 5, 6 houses and say, I'm interested in these. And a
Mhm.
lot of times those sites are not as updated as our databases. So they get frustrated because, they're all under contract or they sold, a month or two ago.
Right.
So they get frustrated with that data. So it's best to let us send the properties to you that are available that meets the criteria. But at any time, if somebody questions or wants to look at a property, I'll look up the address and give them the information, because,
Mhm.
this is a process that we're working through together. So,
Yeah,
mhm.
I feel like my slogan for agent list should be like, find an agent, not a house.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
no else is like, find a house and then we'll find you an agent.
Yeah. And, with the military members, it's really important because, sometimes in the private agent remarks in our databases, it says, the house is being sold as is, or, repairs are needed. And, we know that it's not going to pass for a VA loan.
Yep.
So they aren't necessarily seeing that data online. So when we look it up, we have a little bit more information and we can help narrow those houses down. So,
Mhm.
mhm,
Yeah, that's really helpful.
yeah.
I think we already answered this question. I was saying, what suggestions do you have for clients to make an offer on a house sight unseen? I think we pretty much covered that.
Yeah, it's really dependent on each house and what I feel like, is the best decision. And it's not always offering asking price. We may have to, offer lower because we know certain things are going to need to be done,
Hmm.
or the buyer might have certain preferences. And then also negotiating closing costs, whether or not we can
Sure.
ask the seller for a contribution towards closing costs. So,
Yeah,
mhm,
that's
yeah.
awesome. Um, what do you think sets you apart specifically from other realtors?
I believe it's my passion and my organization skills.
Hmm.
Um, I just I can do so much more than most people. And my son laughs because he's like, Mom, you're like superwoman. And it's true. I'm very organized the way I think,
Yeah,
with my work, my schedule, and that just allows me to accomplish a lot more. So,
yeah, I would agree.
mhm,
I think time management for real estate agents who want to be at like a high level has to be essential.
it does. Yeah.
Yeah. And lastly, most important question,
Mhm.
if you could be a superhero, who would you be and why?
Um, I think it would have to be like Captain America. I just love his outfit. And I have such a passion for the military and our country
Yeah,
that I think that that would be my superhero.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah. Who wouldn't want to go for what's his name? Rogers? I forget his first name.
Yeah.
Is it Will? Oh, it's terrible.
I was thinking more about the outfit, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, I love our country. I grew up overseas. I've seen a lot of cultures, and it's great. But we really live in a unique country and have a lot of opportunity here.
Right.
And the work that our service members do and their families, um, I mean, we can't thank them enough. So,
Yeah, I would agree. I actually had a pretty tough deployment in 2019, and I kind of said to myself, I'm fighting for all these freedoms in America that I'm not really getting to enjoy. And I decided when I get back home, I was like, I need to start, taking advantage of like being an American and just even, I think, a lot of people don't have the opportunity to own property, like we
right.
own property in America, and that's amazing, We're
Yeah,
not
well, we have a lot
communist.
of freedoms that a lot of these other countries don't have, and if you don't go and live in these countries or experience them, you don't know. But we have a pretty great country, and we should be proud of it.
Yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
Okay, well, thank you for spending this time with me, doing this interview.
Absolutely.
I think that it's going to be really helpful for people who are moving into your area
Yeah,
who just have questions. They have like a face, they have, a starting point with, where to go. And
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, I
so
would love to talk to anyone and help them and their families. So
yeah. So if anyone out there is looking to move to Fort Moore, Georgia, anytime soon, or out of Fort Moore, Georgia, you need to sell your house, you can get in contact with me at Agent List, and I can get you in contact with Tiffany, and then we can get the process rolling.
thank you so much.
Okay. Well,
Okay,
I'll see you
have a
later.
good day. Thank you. Bye.